Today, the fighting has stopped, and both sides seem to want to keep it that way for now. The Republic of Slovenia is allowing many of its militia fighters to return home. It has also begun releasing more than 2,000 Yugoslav soldiers captured during the past week. They were put on trains to their home republics, and thousands of other Yugoslav troops are returning to their barracks. Here's ABC's John Lawrence.
Yugoslav army troops marched back to their base at Vernica today, grateful for the break in the fighting and hopeful the ceasefire will last.
We all had enough of this. You know. I hope it will last. I don't want to see any of my friends getting killed or something. I hope the politicians will sit down and talk, because that's the only way out.
The Yugoslav army now appears to be following the political line of the Yugoslav Communist Party, announced earlier this week, to allow Slovenia to become independent.
In my opinion, the Slovenian people have the right to have their own state and be sovereign.
But it is not clear whether this policy has been accepted by Yugoslav political leaders or all of the generals. For now, with the tanks and troops on both sides pulling back to their bases or going home, the tension of the past 10 days is easing. At Vernica today, more Yugoslav army soldiers were reunited with relatives who came to visit them, spending a few hours more in the spirit of a countryside picnic than in a war zone. Families came from all over, especially from Slovenia and Croatia, where there is little sympathy for the national government.
Today all of us are very happy because we realize that our family members which are serving ex-Yugoslav army, ex-People's Yugoslav army, are still alive.
Just outside the base, Slovenian barricades are still in place, showing the scars of the recent fighting. Most of the Slovenian militiamen have gone, leaving behind their anti-tank mines. And the people who live around here are adjusting to the new situation in their own style. John Lawrence, ABC News, Vernica.
Mikhail Gorbachev had something to say about Yugoslavia today. He says the violence there should serve as a warning for the Soviet Union that, in his words, we cannot break apart. He said it in the Ukraine, one of the Soviet republics trying to become independent. He met there today with German Chancellor Helmut Kohl to talk about the Soviet Union's need for economic assistance. Here's ABC's David Ensor.
On the grounds of an exclusive government compound, they talked for 5 hours. Two leaders who need each other. Mikhail Gorbachev knows that when he goes to London in 2 weeks' time to ask Western leaders to help the Soviet Union, if anybody's going to be sympathetic and push his case, it will be Kohl. Today, Helmut Kohl made it sound like he's ready to do what he can.
To the best of our abilities, we should support the process of reform and the process of glasnost.
Kohl needs Gorbachev to prod his generals to complete withdrawal of Soviet troops from Germany. They are falling behind schedule. Then there are the long lines for visas outside the German embassy in Moscow. If the Soviet economy were allowed to collapse, the Germans fear a tidal wave of refugees.
The worst situation in which Germany can find itself is the situation when it becomes a buffer between a prosperous, stable, democratic Europe and disintegrating, starving Soviet Union.
And there are signs the Soviet Union could disintegrate. At a demonstration today for Ukrainian independence, one man had his own advice for the German Chancellor.
I'd like to advise Kohl not to give his money to the Union, to the Kremlin Soviet Socialist Republic, but to the republics.
One thing the Germans are advising, patience with the protesters. If Gorbachev again allows use of violence against separatists, Western governments are not likely to help him. David Ensor, ABC News, Kiev.